Hi, welcome to another episode of Youshouldsexit. I hope that you came here after listening to the first 3 ones, and now you're ready for another one. And today we'll be talking about masturbation because May is the month of masturbation, so I wanted to use this opportunity to talk a little bit about that. And of course, a good introduction wouldn't be a good introduction without me inviting you to my social media, most importantly to Instagram. You can find me by the name Youshouldsexit or youshouldsexit.pl if you want to read about it in Polish, which I doubt, so Youshouldsexit. And also, if you want, you can check me out on TikTok, also Youshouldsexit, and on my website. And the website will be linked in the description of my podcast. Okay, so enough of me talking for now. Let's move on to the masturbation topic. First of all, I think we all agree that masturbation is still a taboo. We don't really talk about that. And also, what is strange for me, we don't talk about masturbation even with our friends. It's some kind of a mystery. Actually, while the conversations about sex are getting more and more popular, we are learning to talk about it freely. Masturbation is still on the other side. We don't really talk about it, which is weird because it's a very natural activity. It's a very natural thing to do. And I think that the problem that starts when we are like 13 to 16, I would say, and of course these are only my observations, is that the society knows that men masturbate and nobody is surprised by that. But actually, most people are surprised that women masturbate as well. And let me explain that. Well, let's look at, let's say, junior high school. Then all the stupid jokes start. For example, your male friend goes to the toilet, he comes back, and you hear other male friends being like, he went to the toilet to jerk off, or some random people, some random friends telling you, I'll jerk off when I go home, And of course, such jokes are a nonsense, they are harmful, they shouldn't take place, they're bad. However, the presence of them shows that we are all aware of that. We aren't surprised that men do it. We also, let's say, know a lot about males' masturbation because we know how they do it, we know that they have to do it, that almost every boy does it from relatively young age. However, not the same with girls. You don't talk about it. And when you don't talk about something, even with your friends or even with jokes, then you can feel very ashamed. You can feel that you are doing something wrong. Because let's be honest, at the age of like 12 or 13 to 16, 17, we all want to be the same most of the time. We want to look like, we want to do everything our friends do. So to give you an example, in junior high school, at some point, I got interested in fashion and I started dressing a little bit differently than others. I was wearing like elegant pants, oversized t-shirts, oversized jackets, and I liked it. But after some time, I noticed that people are looking at me and that my friends don't look like that. So I stopped, even though I really liked the way I was dressing because I wanted to look more like everyone. I think that we start cherishing our diversity a little bit later when we are like 17, 18, and so on. Then we want to be different. We want to distinguish ourselves from the group. But before that, pretty much, not everybody, but most of us want to be the same. And now it's pretty much, again, the same with masturbation. When we don't hear any of our friends even mentioning it in like a private conversation, then we think that no one else does it, so we can't really do it ourselves because it's something bad, probably. I remember again in junior high school when I watched my first porn, and then I went to school And I wanted to like check the ground. If my friends also do it, if my friends have watched some porn already. And of course, I didn't ask directly because I was afraid of making a fool of myself. But I was circling around, like asking, what do you think about boys watching porn? Or, yesterday I read something about porn, blah, blah, blah. And of course, I got no specific answer because I asked no specific question. But I was left feeling a little bit guilty. And I was left feeling that I'm doing something wrong. And now to be clear, I'm not saying that we should walk around talking about masturbation. And I think that also we shouldn't walk around and talk about sex to everyone. It's just, I think that everyone should have like a safe space, a group of people. It can be family, siblings, or friends most of the time, with whom we can freely talk about that. We can ask questions, we can compare ourselves, because when we are very young, we need some comparison to our life, because we don't know what lives look like. We don't know what is good, what is bad very often. So we need some comparing point, I would call it. So my point here is that we shouldn't feel that masturbation, exploring our bodies is something wrong. And we should do it when we feel like doing it. And it's really good to find some people with whom we can freely, with no shame, talk about it. And now maybe let's talk a little bit about why masturbation is important. First of all, it's exploring your own body. I think that we all should know how our bodies react to some sort of things, how our bodies look like, how they feel like when we touch them. So I think that masturbation is one of the most natural ways of checking out our bodies. I think it's natural that at some age, children start exploring their bodies. They start being curious about how their bodies look like, how they look down there, how it feels when they touch some parts of their bodies. And I think that the society made it feel like something bad, like something even evil in some cultures, for example, in Poland. I don't think it's true. I think it's just exploring, getting to know your body better. And also, I think that it's a very good way. And also, I think masturbation helps us in the future with sex, because we can find out what kind of touch works for us. We can find out what parts of our bodies are sensitive. And I'm not talking only about our reproductive parts. We can, for example, find out that our nipples are super sensitive and stimulating them gives us a lot of pleasure. We can find out that our neck is sensitive, that the insides of our thighs are sensitive. But also we can find out what kind of stimulation works on our clit. We can find out that the upper part is more sensitive than the downer part, and then we can instruct our partner pretty easily, because I think that we can't expect our partners to do everything correctly and to know what to do when we don't know our bodies. And also in heterosexual couples, well, a man won't know how it feels like when you have your clit stimulated, and the other way around. A woman won't know what it feels like when you have your penis stimulated. So I think that when you know your body, when you know what works for you, then it's much easier when you're having sex with someone else. And also masturbation is a good way of giving yourself some self-love. Very often we complain about our bodies. We don't like some parts of our bodies. We compare ourselves to others, and very often we are not happy with our bodies. We are harsh on them. While our bodies, well, they are with us every day. They have to deal with our stress, with our very often, mental problems. They have to deal with our lifestyles. So I think that masturbation is a good time to give them some love, to give them some pleasure. And also, it's a well-known fact that sex, for example, can be very distressing, can work wonders for our minds, can cure headaches, can cure anxieties, and so on. And the same with masturbation. It's very distressing because I think that anything that gives us a lot of pleasure, because I think that everything that gives us a lot of pleasure is kind of distressing. When we are meeting with our friends that are super cool, with whom we feel super comfortable, we also get distressed. And the same thing with masturbation. It's super distressing. And also because, very often it's like we first masturbate and then we start having sex. Of course, it's not a rule, but I think it works like that most of the time. So when you start masturbating before having sex, then it's a great way of exploring how your orgasm looks like. So it's a good way to feel it for the first time, to give this opportunity to yourself, to give you, I think, one of the greatest pleasures. So then you can have also some point of comparison, and it's connected with what I already said. So you can instruct your partner what to do to achieve it. But now, very important point. You have to remember that you don't have to masturbate. I posted a TikTok some time ago with some general information about masturbation, that we shouldn't be afraid to talk about it, that it's not true, etc., etc. And I got like 2 comments from girls aged 14 and 17 that they haven't done it yet and they're afraid that there is something wrong with them. And this mindset is super wrong. I mean, don't fall into the pressure of society, of your friends. Do it when you feel that it's this time, when you feel like doing it. Some people will start masturbating when they're 13. Some people will start doing it when they're 30. Same with sex. There is absolutely no rule. Because sometimes your body just isn't ready for that. Or maybe your body just doesn't feel the need of doing that. So please remember, there is absolutely no obligation. Because masturbation, of course, has a lot of advantages, and I have already talked about them. But again, it's not an obligation. For some people, I know, drinking wine brings pleasure, and for others, it'll be nonsense. So please remember that. It's okay if you don't do it, and it's also okay if you do it. And I think that also an important point to talk about is how to masturbate. I know it sounds very weird. It's like an introduction to, a book about what you have to do to masturbate. And I'm not an expert. I just want to share some thoughts I have that may help you to bring you more pleasure. And first of all, I think that first masturbation, just as first sex, or anything we do for the first time, can be a very good depiction of expectations versus reality. I think that we can't expect our first or second or third or 10th masturbation to be super great. Because as I said before, masturbation is about getting to know your body. It's about exploring your body. So when you start doing it, I don't think that we have an intuitive knowledge about where to touch ourselves, how to do it. We have to figure everything out ourselves. I think that we can get discouraged pretty easily when some people say that, oh my God, masturbation is so great. I masturbate many times a week and I always come. You try doing it and nothing. You don't come and the pleasure is mediocre. So I think that we have to find our sensitive places ourselves because, as I said again before, everyone is different. So everybody is different. Some people prefer stimulating their clits faster. Some people slower, the upper part, the downer part, and all of the stuff. So I think that first and foremost, take some time at first to explore your body, to know it, to touch yourself slowly on different parts of your body. Give yourselves a moment to find out what you like. Don't rush. Don't panic. I don't know. Don't look at other people doing it. I mean, it sounded weird. Don't listen to other people giving you advice. Of course, they may be helpful, but they may not work for your specific body. And now I think that it's important to take care of your intimacy when you start masturbating, but also when you do it later. So maybe wait for the moment when your house is empty, or if you can't really do it, lock your doors. So that you reduce the stress factors, so that you don't think about someone coming to your room while you're masturbating. Because the point of masturbating, again, is distressing. So you can't really get the great pleasure thinking about other stuff and stressing about your parents, your friends, your flatmates, whoever, walking on you masturbating. And then I think it's good to create a good atmosphere for that. And there are many ways of doing that. You can, for example, dim the lights. You can light up some candles if you want. You can play some music. Very often people watch porn or erotic movies for masturbating, which I think it's fine. It's okay. But also you can start fantasizing about something, or you can start remembering some sexual experiences. And by sexual experiences, I don't mean only sex, because it can also be a touch, an eye contact, a conversation, I don't know, or observing other people being in love on the street, whatever works for you. Because I think that, and we often forget about it, we have to create the atmosphere in our heads first. Because I think that sex, orgasm, and masturbation start in our heads, not in our bodies. So with masturbating, it's a little bit like with sex. We have to remember about a good foreplay. So if we remember about it during sex, at least I hope so, we should also remember about it while giving ourselves some self-love. So we shouldn't rush into it. We shouldn't do it anyhow. When you turn on your head first, then your body will get turned on much, much easier and better. After doing this foreplay, it can work wonders. It can be so different that maybe that's the way you will explore some pleasure you can give to yourself. And also I think it's worth talking about what toys you can use for masturbation. Because I think that it's also a taboo, and it shouldn't be. Very often when we think about buying our first, for example, vibrator, we are a little bit ashamed. We want to hide it. We want to buy it on the internet. We don't want to go to any kind of sex shop because we think it's embarrassing. And well, it doesn't make sense, because sex toys are made for being used, not for being looked at. They're here to help you. We have such a variety of different sex toys we can use that I think that we should explore this field as well. And of course, we can use our hands for masturbation, but also, for example, we can use a vibrator called Penguin, which stimulates our clit. We can use something called Bunny, which stimulates both our clit and the G-spot. There are of course also dildos which simulate penetration, and I think that much more. To be honest, I follow a few accounts on Instagram that talk about sex toys, or some producers of sex toys, and very often I see something and I wasn't even aware that something like that exists. So of course it can be a little bit pricey, because very often vibrators and different sex toys aren't that cheap. But I think it's also good exploring them. And again, just like first masturbation may not meet your expectations, same with vibrators. Very often your first vibrator won't be for you. It won't have the kind of vibrations you want. Maybe you bought only something for your G-spot while you need something for your clit, or the other way around. So if you have the resources, so if you have the money, if you can afford it, it's good to test a few. Maybe you will find your winner for the first time. It's very probable. But maybe you will have to go through a few types of vibrators to find your new best friend. And also another thing I want to talk about is that masturbation is not only one-on-one, let's say, activity, pleasure. Because very often when I think about masturbating, we think about doing it alone in your bed or wherever, so with no other people. But masturbation is also great for sex. It can work as a foreplay. For example, you can masturbate yourself next to your partner. You can both do it so that you turn the other side on. But you can also try masturbating, and I think it's easier for women in general. You can also try masturbating during sex. You can try stimulating your clit during sex with your partner. But also you can start using vibrators so that you have both penetration and clit stimulation involved. And I think that many people forget about that. While, well, I think it's also quite natural. If you feel like you want something more, you want to stimulate yourself more to come, or in general to give yourself more pleasure, you should do it. And I think that it's a little bit tricky sometimes, because unfortunately some men think that, when you try using vibrator or touching yourself while sex, it means that they're not enough, and they can get a little bit upset. And there's a very appropriate quote for that floating around the internet. You are becoming a man when a vibrator is no longer your enemy, it becomes your best friend. So for me, it shouldn't involve any kind of conversation. When you're having sex and you want to use your vibrator or your hand as well, you should just do it. However, it can be, as I said, upsetting for some men or for some women. So I think that the best way to deal with that is just to have a good, honest conversation. Because I think that you can fix everything with a conversation. I think that we should talk with our partners about our desires, about our sexual needs. There's nothing wrong with that, because again, there are so many different bodies, so many different people, and one woman will be able to come only with penetration, and another woman will have to have her clit stimulated. And it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the first or the second person. It's just their bodies are different, and that's all. So let's talk with each other, especially in relationship, about our sexual needs, about our sexual desires, whether something works, whether something doesn't work. It can really work wonders. And now to finish it off, I think that my main message in this podcast is not to be afraid of exploring your bodies, of getting to know them better. And also not falling into the social pressure of doing it one way or another. If you want to do it your way, do it your way. If you don't want to do it at all, don't do it at all. But also, and I can't stress how much I want to highlight that, I think that we should have a safe space. And by safe space, I mean a group of people with whom we can talk about it. Because very often we can have some questions about masturbation. We can encounter some problems while giving ourselves some self-love. And I think that it's good to find a person or people with whom we can talk about that. For example, parents. But, that's a controversial thing, because some people say that it's okay to talk about them about that. Some people say that that's the line you shouldn't cross. It can also be, your sister, your brother, your friends. But you can also ask any question to your gynecologists, because that's what they are there for. And also we have to remember about the internet. Well, I think that also that's a tricky thing, because we have to find reliable sources. However, there are many of them at the moment on the internet. The internet has changed a lot since, let's say, 2012. So it's much easier to find websites, people, blogs, YouTube videos, or podcasts that are super reliable, that have many doctors, gynecologists, sexologists that are there to give you some advice. So try to treat your bodies with the same respect you will treat other bodies. So if you, for example, have a partner and you think about giving him or her a lot of pleasure, you are trying to improve yourself for him or for her, you should also think about that for yourself. You should also think about giving yourself some pleasure. So I think that is my point for this podcast. Let's have fun. Let's explore. Let's experiment. And let's start getting to know our bodies better and giving them a lot of love. Okay, that's it for today. I hope that you enjoyed this podcast, and I hope that you could, learn something, or maybe you could change your perspective a little bit, or maybe you just relaxed listening to my voice. Either way is good. And of course, I know that I'm annoying, but please remember to go to my Instagram, TikTok, and other social media I wanted to say, but I have no other social media. So remember to go check me out there, leave a comment, follow me, because, I'm just starting, so I need some support from everyone listening to that. And I hope that you will come next week to listen to my next podcast. I won't tell you now what it'll be about, but I'm sure that you love it, because my next podcast is very wholesome, very warm, and I think it will be a beautiful way of celebrating. I won't tell you what. Celebrating some special day. Okay, so that's all for today. See you next week. And enjoy, relax, and remember, you should always sex it. Ooh.